Good evening. I am Norris Palmer, and I'm a co-producer here at the Friday Harbor Film Festival. And tonight we have the opportunity to speak with Lucy Ostrander, and she is in Bainbridge right now. Oh, wonderful. Now we want to make sure your volume's good. Honor Thy Mother is the untold story of 36 Aboriginal women from Canada and Native women from tribes in Washington and Alaska who migrated to Bainbridge Island, the traditional territory of the Squamish, if I'm pronouncing that right, Squamish, in the early 1940s. They came, some still in their teens, to pick berries for Japanese American farmers after being recruited. Many just released from the Indian residential schools fell in love with the berry fields and married Filipino immigrants. They share their confusion of growing up with no sense of belonging in either culture and raised in poverty as the children of berry farmers, some with no running water, electricity, or indoor plumbing. And Lucy, we thank you for being here. And I've watched that video several times, and it's really an emotional, unnerving video about how we've taken so many cultures out and tried to eliminate them. Tell us about your production company and its goals.
The production company is myself and my husband, Don Sellers, and we've been making films for decades. We met in graduate school at Stanford in the film program, and we focus on historical documentaries and social justice issues. We've made a number of films about the World War II experience of Japanese Americans. And this film came about because we had made a film in 2007 called Island Roots about the Bainbridge Island Filipino American community. And in making that film, I learned a little bit about the Indopino community. And one of the women we interviewed for that film, Gina Corpus, who's Indopino, contacted me 2 summers ago with the idea of filming some oral histories with perhaps making a film about it. And so that's how this project came about.
What led you to this particular subject, though, to take all that and put it into this video?
Well, Gina wanted this film made and was able to raise the funds to make it. So, and I felt it was an important story, certainly one that was not familiar on Bainbridge to many people, and certainly not known to people outside of Bainbridge as well. It's really an untold story. And the oral histories, the interviews that we did were so powerful. When we were going to raise money for the film, we approached the Bainbridge Community Fund, which is a nonprofit that funds other nonprofits around Bainbridge. And we put together a 15-minute promotional reel of some of these interviews. And they were so moved by it that they ended up giving us the largest grant they had ever given. So we were very thankful for that.
How did the early schools, now this was a law that Canada came up with, that the way to get these children civilized was to take them from their parents. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Where did they get that from?
Well, they wanted to take the Indian out of them. They wanted to make them, white. And so they forcibly took them away from their families at age 5 and sent them to these schools that were run primarily by the Catholic and Anglican churches, and where they were punished if they spoke their native language, practiced their cultural traditions. And it started in the late 1880s. And it continued until 1996.
And then we found out about Canada over there and all those children that were buried.
I mean, that's why I think this film is particularly timely.
Go on.
Yeah.
I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty here. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. How did the early schools capture these children? I mean, did they just walk up and take them out of the arms of their parents?
I don't know the answer to that, exactly how that was done.
I guess it's just crazy that they could do that. What is the outhouse language that you described in your video?
Well, I didn't describe it. Gina Corpus described it, and she said that she remembers when her mother and her aunt, the only time that they would speak their native language would be because it was still so taboo to be considered quote unquote an Indian within the Filipino community, that the only place they felt comfortable speaking their native language was going to the outhouse.
What coping mechanisms did they use to go from one oppressive environment to the other oppressive environment? When they were young, they came into the Filipino existence, and then they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that. And you speak, or the video speaks to, they had this way of being, some coping mechanism. What was that?
Well, I think amongst themselves, particularly the women, I mean, they would gather and support one another. But I think a lot of them weren't able to cope, and a lot of them died early, or left the marriages. And most of these families had quite a few children. They both, leave it at that.
Can you explain the Indipino?
Well, the children from these marriages of the Aboriginal and Indigenous women and the Filipino immigrants, as they started to reach adulthood and were looking for an identity for themselves, they called themselves Indipinos. And so that's how the term came about.
Indians and Filipinos, the Indipino, is that? Oh, okay. What I see from this is a story of how cultures get dissolved and suppressed. Where are we today in the suppression of culture? Who are we trying to suppress now?
Look around. I mean, it's happening everywhere.
What do you believe to be our common culture as consumers? What is our culture today? A friend of mine says we're the Hallmark card culture. They say this is a holiday and this is a holiday. I mean, where is our culture as who we are today, you think?
I don't know. Are you talking about as Americans, or?
Yeah.
Well, I think we absorb different cultures, which is why that makes this country good and strong, is by accepting different cultures. There is no one, American culture.
Well, this story really did a good job, and you're right there in our backyard in the archipelago here in the San Juan. What other documentaries do you see coming from your expertise?
I don't have anything in the works right now.
Well, is there anything you'd like to add to the video, the creation, the camera work, the funding people who sponsor, because sponsors are so important in this artwork?
Well,
we
got a lot of support from businesses on the island and individuals on the island, and the Suquamish tribe. And
are you previewing at a lot of other film festivals?
Yes.
Can you tell us some of them?
It's the Social Justice Film Festival, the Bend Film Festival.
Oh, wow.
Local sightings, the American Indian Film Festival.
Wow.
It's going to be shown this Sunday in Bellingham at the Pickford Theater. It's called Doctober. It's a month-long documentary series.
That's a great place to be. Well, Lucy, I have no other questions. If there's anything else you want to add to this, we're all ears and sights.
No, I think the film speaks for itself. And, I welcome questions from the audience. So if there's any, I'm happy to try to answer some.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us, and I can't wait to watch it again because it's really, really, really heart-touching, and it gives out a great message.
Thank you.
Thank you.